Welcome to the 28th edition of Botcasters. Today with Mr. Thomas Frey from the United States of America, who is a futurologist. Welcome, Thomas.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thomas, please introduce yourself, besides your name, of course.
Yeah, I'm the executive director of the Da Vinci Institute. I work as a professional speaker, so I travel around the world giving talks. My job is to help enlighten people on what the future holds. And there's lots of interesting techniques for doing that. I've also developed a course called Future Like a Boss, and you can find out more at futurelikeaboss.com. And it's comprised of all of the techniques that I've developed over the years on all the tools and what I refer to as the lenses that we use for thinking about the future. I became a futurist because I went to the eye doctor and I asked him for a pair of glasses so I could see into the future. And so that's what I do. I see into the future, and it's an amazing world out there, and it's so much.
No time travel involved.
Yeah, I come back once in a while just to say hi.
That would be amazing. But on a serious note, we're podcasters. We talk about chatbots, conversational AI, and there's so much happening at the moment. It's going left and right, and AI startups are popping up like, I don't know. It's like like rain. It's everywhere, and a lot of them don't add a lot of value. But there's a lot. There's quite a few that are doing really, really smart things that we would have thought of in science fiction movies. Yeah, and it's becoming reality. So, and I understand that is what you're doing.
So there's. I worked on a paper last night about the concept of a morality engine for OpenAI, about where should we draw the line. I mean, people want to know how to poison somebody or how to assassinate a world leader, or you can go down the list of all kinds of devious things, how to blackmail somebody, how to scam somebody for $1 million. And they want to go onto AI and say, fill me in, how do I do this? And it's better that we not know that. There are certain things that we're better not knowing. But then you look at how this is going to evolve in the future. Very likely, over the coming years, we're going to have some sort of a chatbot that with a conversational interface we're talking back and forth to, and it becomes our best friend, that we our pal, that we our buddy bot that we talk back and forth to all the time, and it becomes the one that we confide in. It knows who we are. It knows everything about us, and it knows what topics we're interested in. It knows what the hot button issues are here and there. It becomes our cheerleader. It becomes the protector of our privacy. It is able to finish our sentences for us. And so this chatbot, this buddy bot that we develop, then because it knows everything about us, then we can then go to a movie and the movie gets made up on the fly. The AI knows how to interface with our chatbot, and it knows what things excite us and what things are of interest to us. And this movie gets created on the fly, and it's different for every person that goes to it. It's the same with reading a book, and this book suddenly gets written on the fly. It gets written as we're reading it because it knows what topics we're interested in. And so when it comes to voting on a topic, it knows what things we're interested in, so it will cast our vote for us. and we can be asked about 20 or 30 different topics to vote on in a single day. It doesn't occupy our time because our bot then just knows how we're going to vote on things and instantly votes for us. And these are some of the things that I think are pretty fascinating moving forward here.
And these are interesting thoughts. And probably some of it will become a reality.
Yeah, some of the things I talk about actually do happen. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point of it being a futurist, that you, to a certain degree or extent, can predict what's going to happen. But if you zoom out a little, you said one thing about protecting our privacy. That's one thing. And then it knows all about us and does stuff for us. I mean, it would make our lives easier, but to a certain extent also maybe a bit boring. Or we would use that time that is being freed up for other interesting stuff. But you say every film, every book has a private plot, basically, just for me. So how can I converse with my friends about that great movie I went to, but has a total different outcome than as the movie they saw? So
that's a great question. Yeah, because you have no common ground then if you haven't watched the same theme.
So what are people in book clubs are going to do? They'll be extinct. No, but the question before that was the thing about privacy. You're talking about so much data on me or you, and we know that all these big corporations like Meta and Amazon and Microsoft, they have so much information about us already.
Yeah.
That would be so scary to give them that. All that extra information. And what if that would get hacked? You say voting, in the preparation we discussed, why can't we vote and being helped, especially in Europe where there's so many political parties, people are lost to who to vote for and why vote for a certain party. So it would be great to get some help, understanding what each party stands for, and what to vote for and why. But if these big corporations know that about us, then we could be manipulated, or the outcomes could be manipulated. You know, if something gets hacked, which is not unthinkable,
right?
Or someone internally in one of those big corporations just changes something, then voting could be rigged, or anything could be rigged.
Yeah, a few years ago, I wrote a scenario about how the Norwegian Nobel Committee decided that, they have a responsibility for promoting peace around the world, and they decided that they wanted to do something different, and so they wanted to hold a global election to select the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, they would pick the 4 candidates that were running each year, and then the people of the world then would vote on it. And they would announce it 60 days before the day of the election. The candidates then would do a small amount of campaigning, but then the day of the election comes and people could cast their vote through their AI system or through any electronic device to cast that vote. And then when the day comes, then they announce the winner, and the winner has had 769 million people voting for them in the last 24 hours, and they suddenly become the most famous person on planet Earth, which I think is a realistic possibility, because this is the first time we've done a global voting for anything, and then that starts to open up all kinds of interesting questions about, well, should we be doing global voting on banning plastic bottles around the world, or should we be doing global voting on who owns a particular island in the Pacific? And at what point does the sheer weight of having hundreds of millions, even billions of people weighing in on a topic cause global leaders to take notice and listen to what's being said? That, I think, becomes kind of an interesting question. And so do we use global voting system to decide the next location of the Olympics, or do we use it for deciding the next World Cup or other topics along the way? I think it opens the door for lots of creative questions that we don't have good answers for yet.
Well, interesting enough, not that I'm a fan, but if you think about the Eurovision Song Contest,
right?
They basically sort of do that. They let there's a professional there are professional judges. They cast their votes,
Right.
and then there's the people that vote.
Right.
And that's now it's organized per country, but you could imagine that being the whole world, and that's also a few 100 million people that can vote, and there's
Right.
millions of people that do vote. So it's not that far away.
No, not at all. And if we make it a little bit easier with an AI system that's tied in, and we cast our vote seamlessly and invisibly, that I think opens the door for lots of other opportunities to kind of read the kind of the temperature of humanity around the world.
So basically, the next Secretary General of the United Nations should be voted in by the people of the world, because he's representing all of us, he or she.
Yeah.
And you just make it an average weight in terms of how many people live in a country, and that decides how heavy the voting of that people weighs into the total.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That can be done.
So there's in any democracy, it gets down to this question of, do these people know what they're voting on? Do they know the issue? Do they know the people? And if you were to pre-test everybody that is voting with like, I don't know, 3 or 4 rudimentary questions, and then qualify some people or unqualify other people, that would be a real interesting shift in how we do things. So I happen to think that people shouldn't vote if they don't know what they're voting on. So
most people won't be voting.
Yeah.
That's part. It's an interesting thought. That's part of. If you look in Europe, I can speak for Holland. We have so many political parties. Most people have no clue anymore because it's so complex what they're voting for. It's not left or right. It's not green or not green. It's a mixture of everything.
Right.
So and then they negotiate for a program because they have to work together. So nothing stays afloat of what you voted for. So people are literally lost. And I would assume that using conversational AI technology could help people enormously to understand what they're voting for, to educate people.
Right.
Because they could ask the questions and then the AI helps them answering based on the information on the political parties and the programs.
Right.
And then sort of helps them not tell them what to do, but get an image of what's happening or what's not happening.
Right.
And then think about what they want to happen and then vote. So the people who are not qualified to vote, they should be educated, or should be if they want to. Nobody should be, but if they wish to. And I think governments should do that.
Yeah. So are we entering the early stages of the singularity, the technological singularity?
It's an interesting question. If this is the early stage, how would the next stage look? Then I'm really wondering, because this is already this would be a big step, because if you can educate people this way and help them decide who to vote on,
right?
Then the next step is you just in the same system you vote.
Right.
So then, so what's the next step? If this is the first phase, what would the next step look like? And you're the futurist, so please help me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, I always think about the cars that we drive today have been in development for the past 120 years. So it's actually taken that long to get to cars that are this good. Now, AI already has like a 50-year history, and it has not been very good up to this point. All of a sudden, it's kind of blindsiding us because all this work for the past 50 years is actually paying off. So
that's the same with chatbots, Thomas,
right.
Because chatbots have been around for quite a while. It's only now that we see, and we call it conversational AI. It's booming, and on top of that, we put the booming AI, the real AI. So it's like it's the hockey stick. It took a very long time, and all of a sudden it goes up.
Yeah, and so instantly people are becoming very dependent on AI for all kinds of things. So what does that look like when that dependence goes up? What does that look like when we have a robot in our house that we send out to get groceries that knows instantly what to buy at the grocery store? It has its own bank account so that it can pay for whatever it gets.
That's actually very smart.
Yeah. Can we? With autonomous vehicles, there's all kinds of questions surrounding them. I mean, at what point can we put our kids in the car by themselves to go to school? I mean, if we develop a car that would recognize a parent on one end and recognize a teacher on the other end, can we put a 6-year-old child into a driverless car to go to school? And then for how long? Is 10 minutes okay? Is 30 minutes too long? And so we haven't had any discussions surrounding things like that. It opens the doors for lots of other things as well.
That's interesting because we haven't even solved the insurance problem of autonomous driving cars. Because as long as you have autonomous driving, non-autonomous driving cars, like the regular cars, and autonomous driving cars using the same road, the same infrastructure, it's very difficult to ensure that. Because
right.
it's two totally different systems. Everybody has an autonomous driving car with the same technology, keeping distance, etc., and it works well. Then it's a different story. But then the insurance companies are out of business, car insurance companies, because there's nothing. Accidents are almost impossible to happen unless technology fails. Right.
Yeah, I tend to think that that's what's going to happen. They go out of business. And the same with car loans. We
won't own cars anymore.
Yeah, banks made huge amounts of money doing car loans, and if we don't have to own our own vehicles, I mean that's such a massive game changer. I mean every vehicle that gets manufactured today has to have 4 parking spaces as soon as it comes off the assembly line.
Why 4?
Yeah, you need one at home, one at work, and one where you go shopping, and then another one. So it's like we need tons and tons of spaces to park all these dang things. And if we keep them all in motion, then we don't have to have parking spaces for all of them.
This sounds almost like a system where the next level of autonomous driving cars, so it's Tesla 2.0, would be integrated with the infrastructure, and they would there were thoughts on that. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, where if you go on the highway, you sort of click in a rail like a train, it goes in, and then the speed is determined by the speed at which this rail is going. You just click in, and when you go off, it's sort of like a train taking a different track. It just understands where you need to go, and it takes you down. So that all infrastructure would have like this rail where you click in. So you can't. So the police would be out of business too, because you can't speed anymore.
Right. So I don't think people are going to be sorry about that going away.
No. No, but if you start thinking about that's AI and technology in the bigger picture. But if we bring it back to conversational AI and chatbots, I presume that at some point you talk to your phone and you said, I want my car at, like you order an Uber now, I want my car at XYZ, and it needs to be a 4 or 6 people car. And at that certain time, it's in front of your house, right?
Right.
And then, so that's, I would imagine that has a conversational interface. You're not typing anymore. You're just saying, I want that. It confirms, or even Alexa Home or Google Home, or Alexa or Google Home could do that.
Yeah.
And so technology, the user interface is already there.
It'll insert ads in your conversation with it once in a while too.
That would be so annoying. And then you can pay extra for not having ads. Yes.
Right,
so that's where the business model changes.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. You bring up the subject of ads. We're going left and right, which is fine. I expected it to go that way. But if you bring up the subject of ads, I think the whole conversational AI thing, what we see at ChatGPT and what's Bing doing and Bard will be doing, I think all these companies will have a problem because why would you advertise if you just ask a question and you get a full answer with substantiation with whatever you need? Let's say you want, please give me the best 3 mobile phones, under $500. I don't know, as an example. And then it finds a comparison or a test somewhere, and it says, oh, these 3 are the best. Then there's no advertising involved anymore. You just get sort of objective information, and you base your decision on that. So, how is this going to change the way advertising is being done or SEO is being done? Because why would you optimize your website? Because it doesn't make a difference. So I think we're going to see a new business. That's my future vision.
Think about storefronts. The old saying is that, a good storefront is based on location. But if suddenly you get into cars and you just tell it where you're going to go, then suddenly you're not aware of everything you're going by as you're driving down the street. And so the proximity of your store to other things, to other businesses, or being viewable from here or there, I'm not going to say it won't matter at all, but it will matter less. And so then there's a whole rethinking of that kind of advertising. How do you? But
also online advertising. Why would you? I think that whole business, basically what Google is making its money on, and Facebook, that's going to be over, because if you need something, you just ask the question, and that actually coincides with the whole discussion about consumerism. Not that we should have an opinion on that, and it has nothing to do with conversational AI. But if you think about that, as consumers, we are being exposed to a lot of advertising and buying stuff we don't need, and probably spending money we don't have.
Right.
So I can imagine that we go back because of this. You only buy stuff, and it's the same thing with the refrigerator, ordering whatever is needed. If you have like a standard list, that's the same thing. You don't order anything you don't need. It's just, what you want in your refrigerator. So there's not the temptation of the supermarket where you see, oh, I like this, I like that.
But we very likely will be asking our AI, can you recommend 3 possibilities for dinner tonight?
That would be nice.
I want some snacks for later. Can you recommend some options? And so I can see the nature of advertising taking on an entirely different face. You might give your AI the latitude, order 10 surprise things for me this month with this kind of budget. Just to keep life interesting.
Actually, that would be. That's like in Holland. I don't know if it's like this. We used to have something there where you could order a surprise trip, and basically it would tell you. The company would tell you what to pack instead of warm clothes or cold or clothes for a warmer climate. And the only thing you would know was the date and time you would leave, and you had to be at the airport. You had no clue where you were going. And what they did was they basically sold packages that were left over from travel organizations at a discount, because they would fill up the seats in the hotel rooms.
Okay.
It's really smart. And so they didn't have to say where you were going, just whether it's warm or cold there. It's actually really smart. But that's sort of similar like what you're saying, because then if we talk about consumerism, if you want snacks, then or surprise stuff, that would be stuff that would go out of date or something if you don't sell it and have to throw away.
Right.
And this way you would go, it's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah. I was thinking about this. Have you ever heard of the red paperclip story?
No, I know paperclips, but not the red ones.
Somebody started with a red paperclip, and through a series of trades, he traded it apparently 16 different times, whatever he had. He traded the paperclip for something, and then he traded that for something else, and he kept trading up. And after a series of 16 trades, he traded it for a house. And using some sort of an AI system to help you make really smart decisions like that, maybe that works. I don't know. You find things that people are tired of, things that they don't want, and then you can bargain with that for something else.
It's interesting, because you're saying AI could help us get rid of money and go back to a barter. That's going back to the old days, where you do you have a barter.
Possibly, it could.
It's not a bad thing, though.
Yeah, it could do things in other ways too. If you were you say that you're getting bored and you want to do something different, you want to get away on a vacation and have it suggest things for you, and then it could give a very elaborate itinerary with all of the stops and stays along the way, restaurants to eat at and all that. That would be entirely possible. And right now, that same kind of trip would involve countless hours of work, sorting through the details and making those decisions yourself. How much does advertising enter into that? Can you buy a placement of a product somewhere along the way?
It's interesting, because basically what you're saying is, and I agree, is that going from, if you're advertising, now you have retargeting, but a lot of the times it's one to many, right? Yeah. It's and what you're saying is, okay, I have a specific need, and that need is for a restaurant or hotel, let's say in Mexico.
Yeah.
Then I'm being advertised just with a restaurant and a hotel in that area I want to be in Mexico. Yeah. So it's solely based on my need. And the other person who's planning a trip in France gets stuff in France.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be a whole new market and a whole new way of advertising, where then you have to ask yourself, or the companies have to ask themselves, how much is it worth to you to get that one customer booking that hotel or booking that table in that restaurant?
Right.
And I think we will see advertising then result based. So basically, if you place the product, so the customer, you or I, order the hotel or the restaurant, then the company in between who sort of serves that to the customer gets a commission on whatever the sales is.
Yeah.
And not anymore on just for the advertising. So it will be result based.
Yeah. Well, there's probably lots of other details that enter into it, because your AI knows that you don't like hard beds and you require a king-size bed where you're going to stay, and you want a walk-in shower to take a shower in, and so you want to be close to a coffee shop because you love coffee. And then you love to be able to walk down the street to a restaurant district rather than getting into another car to do that. So all of these factors come into play, and your AI then will know all of these things about you, and that enters into the equation. So that becomes a very difficult kind of algorithm to put together for people that are marketing their product.
It's impossible because it's there's no preference to say.
Yeah, but you tie in the marketing AI with the personal AI, and they talk to each other, and so somehow it gets resolved.
I understand somehow it gets resolved, but the personal AI is like a filter for anything that is being advertised or promoted or pushed.
Yeah.
And basically, if it doesn't, it's not according to par or standard of your personal AI, it doesn't get through. So,
Right.
So it actually forces companies that advertise their product or push their product to be really, really specific and precise on what they're supplying. Otherwise, you can never put it together.
Right. It has to have some sort of interface with all the details that people ask about. Yeah. Is that really how it all plays out? Maybe. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't mind, actually.
Yeah. These are some of the things that, I mean, we're speculating on them right now, but I really don't think that that's too far away. I mean, maybe it's 2 years away. I don't think it's much longer than that. And then, so where do we go after that? I mean, what's 10 years out? What's 20 years out? What's 40 years out? 2050, what's life on planet Earth like when we have all these humans that... So one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is this idea that we have the idea of digital twins. And so we put on a pair of smart glasses, and it sees everything we're seeing, and it hears everything we're hearing, and it uses different sensors to capture all of the feelings and the experiences that are going through our body all the time. And so then that goes into kind of this total recall memory system, a digital twin that we can access whenever we need to recall it for something else that we're doing. Too often I can't remember a name or a date or a country or some detail like that. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just kind of tap our head and all of a sudden we can just recall that piece of information? I think that'd be great. And so is that how we're going to start viewing things in the future? And then when all of the things that the information that you're consuming on a daily basis, the average person is consuming information over 12 hours every day. And why is it you don't get credit for all this learning that you're doing throughout the day, and you only get academic credits just for what academia has blessed as this is valuable knowledge? And so what if we were to get microcredits for all of these salient pieces of wisdom that are entering our mind, our brain? And I often say that obsession is underrated. I think that people who want to learn everything there is to know about some super little category, like rubber bands or something, I don't know, want to learn about plaster. And they learn everything in the world they possibly can about that one special thing. Is it possible to get a PhD on plaster? But then this bot that this digital twin would be associated with an assessment bot that would assess all of the things that we're consuming, that we're learning on a daily basis, and it would start granting microcredits. So if you ask the question, if somebody reads 1,000 books, is that the equivalent of a college degree? If somebody watches 1,000 movies, is that the equivalent of a college degree? If somebody listens to 2,000 hours of podcasts, is that the equivalent of a college degree? And the correct answer is, well, it depends on the books, the movies, and the podcasts. But we have all this learning that's taking place. Shouldn't we be getting credit for it? And if somebody created an equivalency scale, so say that this is the equivalent of a bachelor's degree or master's or PhD, and then it would have probably 300 levels above a PhD. And all of this learning that's going on throughout a person's lifetime, and suddenly you have these people that are constantly working their way up this scale as they're learning things over and over throughout their lifetime. And that's where I think it gets really interesting, because an equivalency scale like this isn't important unless you think it's important. If you, as a person that's been working on your personal learning, goes into a prospective employer and you explain to them all of the things that you're doing to add to this this credibility scale that you're working on, then if you can get them to think it's important, then it is. It doesn't have to be officially sanctioned or anything. Suddenly this equivalency scale takes on a whole different level of importance, and academia then kind of shifts into something more in the background because it's too expensive, it takes too long, and it's not something that you wanted to learn anyway.
It's interesting because I think part of what you're saying is on a small scale is already happening.
Yes.
Because how shall I say this? If you look at, for instance, software development, one of my kids taught himself.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's really good at it. And whatever he can do, he could not have learned in any schooling. He's ahead of the pack because he's so interested and you know, it's about what's happening. So he researches, looks at YouTube videos, talks to other people who are on Discord who are busy with the same topic, and develops his knowledge and skills that way. And I see my other kids doing that as well. And the value a lot of companies put, as in past tense, put in college degrees versus actual skills. I think the shift is going, you know, especially in software development and technical skills, is going into the actual skills. Although for some things like electrotechnical engineering, you need a diploma in order to be insured or something. But it's more about skills than diplomas.
Right.
And that's sort of what you were saying. But you said something else, and that triggered me. If we are learning the whole time, we have this sort of glasses or whatever to record everything we're doing, which is scary also. But let's say that would happen.
Yeah.
I imagine a conversational interface with my mind, or basically the storage of everything I did and saw and every conversation I had. I couldn't remember. It's like, brain, please tell me who did I talk to then, and what was the summary of the discussion. Boom. You get a summary like you now get with ChatGPT on YouTube, etc. There's tools that work. You would be able to do that. And that is the same for knowledge. You read a book. It's like, okay, it's too much to reproduce by myself, but, I have the information in my database. I ask for a summary.
Right.
So I see knowledge. It's something we can look up. It's the logic and the intelligence that's where our actual brain kicks in and starts doing stuff with it.
Right. And I think this just opens up the world. People, I always am critical of colleges because I accuse them of shooting behind the duck.
What does that mean?
Yeah, it's not. It's no longer possible to know what skills somebody should have 4 or 5 years in the future for an employer, and so they're teaching people what's important today, and that's going to be outdated very soon. And so, these skills that you're learning? Do they have any value? Do they? Are they going to be skills that fall by the wayside? Is there something more valuable I could be learning? And in almost all cases, the answer is yes. There's much more valuable skills out there.
Let me take this to. This is interesting because let me take this to healthcare. I had last week I had a recording with someone who is a researcher in AI in healthcare. At the University of Alberta, and we basically concluded we already tested that if you use ChatGPT or a similar model to get differential diagnoses, and you use actual medical data, it's really interesting. It comes up in the top 3 with better results or or the same results as doctors, and we're only at the beginning. But it's just a matter as to how you prompt and how you ask the questions to the system. Right. So we came to the conclusion that if the education systems or the universities where we educate doctors do not start teaching doctors, also the doctors that are already working, how to use this and how to anticipate on what patients will be using to come into their office and say, I found 5 differential diagnoses with the blood results I took from your system, because we have access to those systems, then the doctors will be troubled by loads of work because they have to, first of all, investigate all of that. They cannot just push it away because those are realistic diagnoses. But they'd have no clue how to deal with that or be ahead of the patient and say, okay, I used AI to generate differential diagnoses. I researched them, and this is the test I put out. So you understand what I mean?
Right. And so it brings up several different options, different scenarios of maybe we don't have to go to the doctor near as often because we can get our own diagnosis. Maybe we just use the doctors for the really rare stuff, the stuff that's really difficult to understand. And maybe we use some sort of a chatbot to, as kind of an ongoing basis, is to say that if you if you take a little bit more vitamin C, or if you take some of this this alternative medicine, this could actually increase your pace quite a bit. And then I think we're going to start seeing kind of this interface between our food and our physical body and our metabolism. So we go in and we have a hamburger, only we don't want just a regular hamburger. We want something that was lab grown, and it has this flavor to it, but it also has these vitamins incorporated into it, and it syncs up with our personal DNA. And how long before we can get that? And then, because we can do lab-grown beef and lab-grown chicken and everything, we're also going to start doing very exotic meats as well. lab-grown penguin or lab-grown bumblebee meat or lab-grown platypus, or who knows what that might be. And every one of them is going to come out with all these testimonials, and this cured my gout, and this made me run faster. So I didn't lose my hair near as fast with this one. So all of these things, I think, open the door for some really fascinating possibilities. And I think that the doctors, they're overloaded at the moment. I think that we can take on much more of that load ourselves if the system is set up so that everything is focused on the doctors have to make these decisions. They have to prescribe these medicines for you, this therapy, these other options for you. If we can unleash some of those decisions so that we can make them ourselves, that changes the medical system immensely.
That's funny because when we tested ChatGPT, and specifically he tested a lot more in his research, and he came to the conclusion that it's very good at telling you have to go to the clinic or you have to go to the hospital based on that, but it's not very. It falls apart when you go to self-care or home care. Right. It could be legal, but it's afraid to be liable for whatever it said, and not telling you to go to the doctor. We're not sure, but it's not there yet. And but the interesting part is, I think there's something which points in the other direction, because we know that a lot of the blood results, in 90% of the times, it's nothing serious. It's just an anomaly, and it goes back to normal, and you're not sick, you're not going to die. It's just a fluke, or something you ate, or something you did.
Yeah. But let's take it.
But hold on. But what happens is you also get the anomalies telling you, okay, this could be some type of cancer or some weird autoimmune disease. There's these options it's telling you. Right. And that's where the problem starts, because people get, oh my God, I might have an autoimmune disease, or I might have cancer. That could very well be true or not. So it also will cause, if it's not curated in some way, that people will call the doctor or the clinic or the hospital and say, listen, I might have cancer, I might have this, I might have that. You need to test me. So I think it's, at first, without curation, it's going to make things worse, because people are going to be stressed and not be sleeping because they want to have this diagnosis excluded.
Yeah.
It's the opposite way. So it needs to get worse before it gets better. That's usually the case. I understand that.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think doctors, if they do not learn how to deal with these kind of systems and the outcomes and start curating it as a professional group, or maybe do it the opposite way, have AI telling their patients that based on these results, it could be these 5 things, but don't worry, we'll look at it for you and exclude whatever is not relevant. Be open and honest about it. So basically sharing whatever you get as a result, then you're ahead of the patient.
Yeah.
Not doing his own research, which might be a good idea, basically, because there's so much rubbish out there.
Well, let's consider that there's one AI system for doctors and there's one for patients. But if we take it to a whole different level, somewhere on the dark web, somebody's going to get rid of the filters. So you're going to be able to pay a little money and get access to this AI system that will, it doesn't hold anything back. There's no...
the Dan on ChatGPT or the jailbreak.
There's no limit to what it, and so you can dive as deep as you want, and it will give you the raw details of what really might be going on, and that's where I think it gets real interesting, because if you have a totally unfiltered AI, then it can tell you how to assassinate this prime minister. It can tell you how to poison somebody. It can tell you what happens when you poke somebody's eye out. These are things that right now it filters all that stuff out for I think for good reason. But I think that there's lots of people who still want to have access to that no matter what, no matter how bad it would be for society. They want to know it. And I've got to think that it's going to be creating kind of a challenging setup there.
But let me ask you the question. If you were to go to the doctor and you had to do blood work, an X-ray or a CT scan or whatever, would you want to do your own research and have unfiltered AI telling you all the options it could be? Or would you like to have a shared AI system with your doctor where you both look at things the same way, using the same resources, and the doctor views whatever you see and you see whatever the doctor views in the technology, and basically whatever comes out, the agreement is that he'll take it or she'll take it seriously and investigate all options? Because that's part of the problem now, that a lot of times either they don't know or they don't have the time to filter all the options, or they do it in steps. And say, oh, let's exclude first one and then another one. But if you have 5 differential diagnoses with the same blood results, why not exclude them all at the same time?
Yeah.
To take away your stress.
Yeah. My contention is probably 9 out of 10 people going to the doctor don't need to be there. That if they had access to just a little bit more information, they wouldn't have to make that trip. They wouldn't have to take up the time of the doctor. That doctor could be using his mental capacity for serious issues rather than lots of cosmetic fluff that doesn't need attention.
Well, my father used to be a doctor. He passed away a couple of years, but he was an ENT, and he said that, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was quite a high percentage. If you don't treat it, eventually it'll go away as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's the hassle, or people are in pain, etc., and that's why people get treated. But in a lot of the cases, no treatment would have resulted in the same end result: people getting cured.
Yeah. And then you have no idea. I mean, it's the fear of the unknown that drives you to go see the doctor. So we've become a society that's highly dependent on the medical world, and I think that's bad for all of us. I mean, we're wasting too many resources on a service that's not necessary right at the moment. Could we live our lives more efficiently? Could we get things done better, faster, cheaper? I don't know. I guess I'm one that would rather spend far less time with a doctor and far more time doing other things.
Can you imagine for yourself a situation where you have like a human-like avatar, your doctor, and you're conversing with the doctor like we're conversing now?
Right.
And this doctor is based on AI. It's not a real doctor. It's a conversational AI, basically asking you a question based on your input. And it's like a conversation in the doctor's room, and he's saying, oh, and you have this, you have that. Oh, you have pain there. Please show me your skin. Takes a picture. He compares it to a database. Would that be an imaginable future for you, where this is happening, and then it's like a triage bot, basically, and it's telling you, oh, you can take aspirin and you'll be fine, or, well, this is more serious, we need to take a biopsy, or you need antibiotics, or whatever, or please come into the office. By the way, my life assistant, a colleague who's the assistant of the doctor, will call you in a couple minutes to schedule the appointment. I imagine stuff like this happening. I don't know if it's for real.
Right.
Would you be open to have a conversation with a bot like that?
Absolutely. So one of the big shifts that's happening around the world is we're creating more and more sensors, and these sensors are becoming much less expensive. The projection.
You mean wearables, as in watches?
Wearable, printable, implantable. So we have just So we're supposed to reach by next year. We're supposed to reach the first trillion sensors in the world. And then by 2036, we're supposed to reach the first 100 trillion sensors in the world. And what this means is the sensors become very tiny, very ubiquitous, very easy to mass produce, very inexpensive. And these sensors are used to detect all kinds of different things from heat to light to moisture to virtually any of a million different things that they can detect. So if we were to print sensors on our body, as an example, we could actually have sensors that are detecting what all is going on with our blood 24/7. And knowing what's happening with our blood 24/7, that's a key to most information about your body. And then if we start putting them by different glands and by different other parts of our body, internally and externally, then the amount of information coming off of our body is far greater than any human can actually work their way through. We need some sort of a AI system to actually analyze all that data and understand if there's any warning signs that are coming out. That I think is a realistic situation here over the next 10 years. And then as we move into that era, then the type of issues that we detect I think the medical community will invent a lot more things that are wrong with us. That's just kind of the nature of their industry. But then...
Or the pharmaceuticals will.
Yeah, the pharmaceuticals will, yeah. You can have better eyebrows if you just take these pills here.
but it's interesting because part of what you're saying is already there.
It is.
Because diabetics have a Band-Aid with a little thing with a needle in it, and it 24/7 it measures the blood sugar.
Yeah.
So if you can measure blood sugar, you can measure basically anything else.
Yeah, this is kind of the coming era of cyborgism. As we put more and more devices on our body to understand it, we become slightly less human with each one we add.
But it makes you wonder what happens if the internet goes down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one giant solar flare has the potential to bomb us back to the Stone Ages.
That is a scary thought.
Yeah.
Then we have to work hard again.
We wouldn't even know where to begin. There are some wild card scenarios like that, but the solar flares are one that it's known as the Carrington effect. Back in 1859, there was a giant solar flare that caused all of the telegraph lines to heat up and burn the fingers of some of the telegraph operators, and that was crude technology at that time. And you think about the sophisticated stuff we have right now. Do we have banks that have everything backed up in systems that could be recovered after a giant solar flare?
And not be destroyed by the solar flare, because if the system gets destroyed, the backup probably gets destroyed as well.
Yeah, there is that potential. So those are things that we need to keep an eye on as well. But I think if we suddenly become aware of 100x, 100 times more than what we're aware of today. Is that going to help us or hurt us or disable us, or what happens there?
Do you? I think that's a thought we can't grasp. What would happen if that would hit us as a planet?
Right.
Because we would have no money anymore. The governments wouldn't exist anymore. We literally would go back to the Stone Age, where diamonds and gold would be the things of value.
Right.
And
right.
That money is irrelevant. Would have become, and everybody who has Bitcoin, it would be non-existent. It's gone.
Right. Right. Yeah. So
if you think about that,
is that a realistic scenario?
I have no idea. You're the futurist. You tell me.
Yeah.
It's a scary scenario, to be honest.
Yeah. I spent some time working with the chief scientist at NASA on a number of these scenarios, and every one of them, if you suddenly have free power, and free power goes off for the next 100 years, what kind of issues does that create over the next 100 years? And if you have
free power as in energy without limit.
Yeah. So as an example, if you are able to transmit power wirelessly, like Nikola Tesla had planned early in his life, we probably wouldn't be able to have cell phone communications like we have today. That would take on some other form. We'd have to do things differently. So each one of these can go off in such interesting tangents that what does entertainment look like? What does our food look like? What does agriculture look like? Just every industry out there changes dramatically as we shift some of the variables.
That makes sense. If you look at there's so many companies out there busy with AI, conversational AI, chatbot platforms. I mean, it's everywhere. But there's also a lot of companies researching and developing new stuff. If you would give them an advice or an idea where to look for new developments or do research and test stuff, or develop new technology, where would you seek it? What would you advise them?
Take a hard look at the companies that Andreessen Horowitz is investing in.
That's Yahoo founders, right?
No, Andreessen Horowitz. Mark Andreessen was the founder of Netflix.
Netflix. Okay.
No, not Netflix.
No, that's Netflix.
Netscape.
Netscape. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
There was some browser.
Yeah, and they are usually, usually right on the cutting edge. They are pushing the envelope in every possible direction, and I find that to be quite fascinating.
And can you give me an example? What they're something that's pushing the envelope and what they're researching or investing in?
Yeah, they just made a huge investment in Adam Neumann. Adam Neumann was the founder of WeWork, and he has a new company called Flow, and they're trying to redesign the way people live. So rather than building houses where every house is an individual box that's separated from every other box, creating communities where people are flowing and interacting with each other, and then what areas need to be private, what areas can be common, and then as a person in that community, how do you create value in that community, and how do you get rewarded for that value that you get created, and then
sounds a bit like a kibbutz.
Yeah, so then the overall cost of entering into a community like that, you know, like buying a house, you have to sell this house over here and get rid of it, and then you have to get a new mortgage and buy another house, and it's a very elaborate process, signing a gazillion papers along the way. You can do it much more seamlessly and invisibly. So that's the conversation that Mark Andreessen had with Adam Newman is quite fascinating and quite revealing.
That would mean you wouldn't own the house anymore. You're just part of a community, and you.
Yeah, but you're actually accumulating wealth along the way, and that's part of the equation that they're building into all of this.
Interesting. So that's a different concept of accumulating wealth and living.
Right. Yeah, so that takes all the traditional ways of thinking about real estate and throwing it out the window and starting over.
Well, that's what we call disruption, right?
Yeah, that's a major form of disruption, right?
But if you look at the conversational AI community, what should they be looking at or be worried about, in your opinion?
Yeah,
I'm worried about is the negative approach. I'd rather have the positive approach.
Yeah, I think there's some political decisions that could come down that that might be rather annoying.
On AI, you mean, or the use of AI?
Yeah, AI and the use of AI, building limitations into it. I mean, can these 5-year-old kids get access to AI? At what age should they be able to talk back and forth to these devices?
It's an interesting thought, because now we give them access to, a lot of young kids have access to WhatsApp if they can read and write. They get a phone from their parents, and we know very young kids get them. But if you have a chatbot in WhatsApp, you basically can access AI.
Yeah,
and have unlimited access to whatever you want.
Yeah, I continue to say that I think parenting is one of the most difficult jobs in the world. And yeah,
I agree.
Putting a chatbot curfew on your kid, that's
well, it's they have that kind of limitations you can put on your router, on your internet router, for the Wi-Fi or which site you can connect to. So it's already built in there. But I can imagine if you have access to AI, then it becomes more difficult.
Right. I would think that that it opens up another can of worms that nobody's quite thought through yet. Yeah.
That's. But then again, we have governments controlling innovation.
Right.
And that's also not a good thing.
Right. That's why I think it's pretty inevitable that somebody's going to put unfiltered AI into the dark web, and there's going to be lots of interesting activity on that level.
That's a scary thought, because that's some powerful computing.
Right. How do I blackmail 1,000 people tomorrow and make $1 million? I mean.
Well, the hackers already, beginning hackers already use AI to tell them how to hack, and it answers, and it gives code to do stuff. Right. Not the most complex stuff, but it does the job. So yeah, it is happening.
Yeah, but
not even on the dark web.
Yeah. So I mean, as we enter in the world of quantum computing, I mean, you ask this question of what if we add 10,000 times the computer power that we have today to this problem here or that problem there, and we use these AI systems to actually work these problems and sort through them much faster than ever before. what does that do to the world around us? People spend their lives dealing with this problem, and then suddenly it's no longer a problem because we solved it. Is that possible? I would like to say that. I would love to say, yeah, it's possible, but I'm not sure. But
no, I understand you're not sure because it's in the future. But
yeah,
actually, we see you can see it in the medical field, where if you ask, for instance, ChatGPT for 5 diagnoses based on the same data, it does it much faster than any human could possibly do.
Right.
It's impossible because it uses the data separately and connected, and then compares it to whatever's out there in its database or in its trained set, and it comes up with answers or possible answers. And I don't think any human being can do it as fast. And if I ask it for 15 diagnoses, it'll give me 50 in terms of level of probability.
So will kids still need to read and write in the future?
That was one of my questions, is if we make everything conversational and you can talk to they call it a digital human, but basically a chatbot with a face, why would they still be typing and read, write, and calculate and do math?
Right.
That's if all the knowledge available is available by just asking it, then you will get the question, why should I go to school? Because all the knowledge is out there.
Right. Yeah, they're teaching me primitive stuff at school. I'm way ahead of all that.
Well, looking into the future, I can imagine that, and I would hope actually that if you look at conversational AI, that in education we will have conversational AI applications, and it could be in WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram, where you are trained by a bot for your exam. So basically, it has all the information in there, the book or the chapters you need to learn, and context, and it asks you relevant questions. And if you, towards an exam, even if you're a great procrastinator, it'll ask you a few questions every day going up to your exam, and it understands what you know and what you don't know in terms of knowledge, what you need to know. It just intensifies the stuff that you don't know in order to put it into your head. That is adapting to the old way of teaching and testing.
Right.
But I have the slight feeling that that is not going to change quickly. So we use technology to become better at it.
Right.
So I would assume that some smart parent in conversational AI designs a system to teach their kids, puts in the book and some context, or use AI to get the context. And so and I had a discussion on my podcast with someone. Why would you teach history and learn all the years, what happened in, 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered America by accident. Why would you learn that if you can just ask it? Why is that relevant to put in your head? What does it do?
Well, exactly. I was thinking about this the other day, that the most valuable executives in the past were the ones with the best memory. The people who could remember all these details, all these pieces of trivia, and our whole education system was all, and it still is pretty much based on rote memory. You just need to remember all these things. And what if you didn't need to remember it all? What if you could just summon it whenever you needed it, rather than committing it to the memory cells that are relatively short supply, I guess. But that then opens the door for an entirely different kind of skilled worker, management people, business owners. That caliber of individual suddenly changes and shifts as we we start working with this new capability.
I agree, but the interesting thing is, I think the whole conversational AI and, of course, the developing technology there sort of fills that gap between the new kind of managers or business owners or doctors or whatever,
right,
and the sets of data that are out there, because most people are not able to ask the right questions and
right,
need to be helped to ask the right question or have some sort of interpreter in between. I think that conversational AI is actually that part in between.
right.
So the way I see it, in the future, it becomes more sophisticated, but also more important in order to get the right answers and the right information out there. But I'm not a futurist, but this is, I get to, the fun part of my job is I get to talk to a lot of people who have different visions. Although you see, and this is interesting, you see like a red line going through all the conversations, and you see like people are sort of having a common vision. We sort of know where it is going.
Yeah.
And everybody feels it. And we're at the beginning of this huge wave of change. We're just waiting for it to grow bigger and bigger, and then the ball is going to drop, or how do you say it? The bomb is going to drop? I don't know.
Right.
It's an English term. But everybody feels it, and and if we go over the hype of AI, because it's a bit hype now, and then we actually go to the true value of what it can be or could be or should be,
right.
I think that's where the fun and the real value starts. Now everybody's just, trying to make money of it.
Right,
and,
right.
A quick buck, and not every application has true value, in my opinion, has true value. It's just...
Right. But it's moving very quickly, and people are building businesses based on a snapshot in time as to what it's like today. But what AI is going to be like 10 years from now is going to be radically different, even 1 year from now. And so that's changing the playing field at an accelerating pace, and that's where I think people are going to get it all wrong.
Where do you think all the money is going to go from all the companies that are doing online advertising now? That's billions and billions and billions. That money is going to stop flowing into online advertising as conversational AI and AI in search engines.
Yeah,
it's being a chatbot. It's going to change all that. Where do you think that money is going to go?
Yeah, we're still going to need recommendations. We're still going to need kind of influencers in the world. And so somebody is going to invent a new way of doing things. It's just it goes out of the old way of doing things and into a new way of doing things, and exactly what that new way of doing things is, I'm not sure we've seen it yet, but it'll be real interesting.
So basically, we know there's going to be billions out there, and we have no clue where it's going yet. Oh, this is interesting. I think if you think about new business, new markets, the people are the ones that invent how to optimize for AI, because that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Like SEO, search engine optimization. I think we're going to get AI optimization. How do you do that? And I think part of it is giving actual, honest, real, relevant content.
Right.
And AI will develop some sort of way to judge if it's relevant and real.
Right.
Not sure how, but I imagine that's going to happen. And based on that, AI is going to recommend you need to do this or that, or buy this or that. And it will recognize advertising as advertising and say, no, but they're just selling you a product. That doesn't mean it's the best for you.
Right.
So I think there's going to be a new, just like there's going to be a new trait, like designing prompts for AI, people who understand how to ask the right questions in the right order.
Yeah. That's
also optimizing.
Yeah, that'll require a whole different kind of training.
Exactly.
It's a different mindset. You're interacting with something that you didn't interact with a year ago, and you're asking it questions, you're asking it to do things in ways that weren't even possible a year ago. And so is there a better way of doing things? Is there a better way to ask these questions? Is there a better way to get results that you're hoping for?
I imagine so, and I think it's a beautiful prospect to think that the speed at which things are changing now, and the what it opens up to us in terms of possibilities. I think that's truly amazing. If you would give an advice or a tip or to people who are working in the conversational AI community, what would you tell them to focus on, or to study, or to develop in terms of technology? What would you say to them? It can be two tips right away.
I made a prediction a while back that I think by 2030, the most valuable company on the internet, more valuable than Google or Microsoft or Amazon, is going to be an education-based company that we haven't heard of yet. I think that's the biggest opportunity out there, where we still nobody has quite cracked the code for it, and that I think is coming. I think this is opening the door to a whole new world. I think the skills that we're going to need to enter into this world are different. I think the opportunities are different, and I think the people that are willing to fly by the seat of their pants, I think, and actually be comfortable with being uncomfortable, that I think is going to be, those are the ones that are going to really master this new world around us.
Uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. I've heard that one before, but in a different context, in a military context. But it's true, and then you embrace change instead of fighting it.
Right. Yeah,
that is a good thought. What is the next thing you're going to be working on? In terms of mind experiments, or
I'm actually doing a lot of work in the cryptocurrency space right now, and I think there's massive, huge opportunities that are getting opened up there, and we're just still in the very early stages of what comes next, and so human wealth comes in lots of different shapes and forms, and cryptocurrency is going to be kind of give us the tools and the vehicles for working with it.
That's an interesting thought. It's like I'm hearing one of my kids talking, that it's actually, although prices go up and down, it's a very stable thing out there.
Right.
And governments aren't.
Yeah. Governments really don't want to lose control.
I just read an article today that the Swiss National Bank had a loss of 200 and something billion Swiss francs. I mean, nobody's writing about it, but and nobody's disturbed by it. A national bank,
right?
A government bank that has a loss of 200 something billion. That's
yeah.
I know that's beyond everything we can imagine, but
right.
Yeah. And in the cryptocurrency world, those things don't happen.
Right.
So interesting, Thomas. I found this a very inspiring. We went left and right, but I found this a very inspiring training for the mind, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because it makes you think, and every question you asked, there's another question behind it. Or with every answer I get, there's another question behind it that makes you wonder, okay,
yeah.
and then what?
Right.
But I'm pretty sure we'll see things happening, and I'm also sure that some of the things we've mentioned here are literally not that far away, or are already happening.
Right.
They just need to come together. Are you going to be publishing? You said you worked on an article last night. Are you going to publish that soon?
On futuristspeaker.com, there you have my blog site there, and So I post a new column every week.
Okay.
So next week there'll be one on creating a morality engine so that AI
On AI.
AI and humanity can coexist. Yes.
Well, by the time this comes out, that blog is already out there, so we'll tag the blog in there,
Okay.
so people can read it. I'm looking forward to reading it. Thomas, I want to thank you a lot for making up time, freeing up time to talk to me, and doing this podcast. And I hope you enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
And
well, thank you for having me on. This has been fascinating.
Same here, and I'm pretty sure that pretty soon we'll see stuff we mentioned here coming to life, and then maybe it's a good idea in a couple of months to look at that together and see how much of the long-term future actually we predicted, or you predicted, actually turned out to be a short-term future.
Right. Yeah, so that would be great.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas, and I'll speak to you soon.